And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Welcome to the Politics, Prepping, and Paranormal Podcast.
I'm so excited. Politics and paranormal. This is like the two things that I'm so obsessed with.
So good, it's scary.
Are you ready?
Welcome to the Politics, Prepping, and Paranormal Podcast. My name is Jeff Moore, and I'm your host. I promised you guys some prepper shows, and that's exactly what I'm going to give you. Prepping has long been a passion for me, and I think in today's world, with all the insanity going on around us, it's more important than ever that everyone is mindful of what could happen and that we all prepare for the worst and be ready to take care of our families in the event that things go even farther south than they already have. We're faced with a growing economic crisis. Our national debt is soaring. It seems like we're at war with pretty much everyone these days, and there seems to be growing distrust, in my mind rightfully so, with our government and our leaders. Yes, we're living in a very volatile time, and from my perspective, I don't see it getting any better anytime soon. So for me, it's more important than ever that we get back to the basics of prepping and make sure that before we go out and invest in guns and ammo or a bunch of expensive preps that we may or may not need, that we first make sure we start with the essentials. First and foremost being food and water. And while stocking up on ready-made food supplies, canned goods, rice, and other essentials is a great idea, you and I both know that none of these are sustainable and that eventually they're all going to run out. Now, I'm not saying don't get any of that. Quite the opposite. Absolutely make sure you have a large cache of ready-to-go food on hand. I just think realistically, we need to be vested in thinking long-term sustainability as well. And one of the absolute best and cheapest ways to do that is to invest in chickens as a sustainable food source. Chickens can be raised with very little space and can provide an invaluable food supply for you and your family long term. So today, let's talk chickens. And I'm excited to welcome one of our nation's leading experts on chickens, Patricia Foreman. Pat is a leading voice in backyard poultry and sustainable living. She's an author, educator, and chicken advocate who has spent decades teaching people about how to raise chickens, and even is an expert on composting and chickens for pest control as well. So she is by far one of the most knowledgeable people you will ever hear from on the subject. So I'm excited to talk to her and learn all about chickens and the do's and don'ts of raising chickens. Welcome, Pat. Thanks so much for joining me.
My pleasure. It's always an honor to talk about chickens.
We're definitely going to talk about chickens today. Before we get started, would you tell the audience a little bit about your background and how you became one of the country's leading authorities on chickens?
Well, I'm not necessarily sure on that, but I have a long history with them. How I got into chickens is I've always loved animals even as a toddler. And I went to Purdue wanted to be a veterinarian, but at that time, there were no women had graduated from the veterinary program. And so I went into pre-med and the pharmacy division. And then when it came time after my third year, they were saying, well, what are you going to do? I said, well, I really want to be a vet. And so anyway, I went over and talked to the vet school. And my advisor there, I'd taken several courses. My advisor there told me what I should do is get a job in the small animal lab and marry one of these young bucks. At which point I was totally enraged. So I went back to the pharmacy school and I said, I'm going to take a couple of years off It's just not working out, and I need to figure out what I really want to do. And he goes, no, wait, you've been accepted into the pharmacy school. And I said, but I never applied into the pharmacy school. He goes, oh, wait, let me go. He went and came out with remember the screens that had the holes on the side. He says, yeah, here's your name. You've been accepted, fully accepted. I said, I don't think so. I really would rather be a vet, and I just need time to figure out what I want to be and do. And he goes, well, come back in 2 days. I will talk to you then. I said, okay. I muttered off and I came back, and he said, well, the dean of the vet school had talked with the dean of the pharmacy school, and we're going to allow you to take both degrees coterminantly. You take electives from the animal science with requirement. So they let me take both things. And then I said, I don't have much money for we're talking for another 4 years or so. He says, wait. So I went off, and he came back the next day, and he said, would you like to be a residence hall counselor? It pays all tuition, room and board, stipend, books, and you won't have to pay anything. I said, well, okay. So that's how I ended up getting both degrees. But in the animal science classes that I took, we went to some of the slaughterhouses, and we handled different livestock and chickens, but looking backwards, it's like we never held them. It was never a respect thing. I never really looked in their eyes to see what color they are. Chickens have different colors of eyes, just like humans. So what happened was, in hindsight, is Title IX had just come out from Ruth Bader Ginsburg's Equal Opportunity Act, and Purdue had a ratio of one woman to 9 boys, and they desperately needed federal funding. So I could have gotten into about any program because they just needed a checkoff mark to get more women into Purdue. So that's kind of how I got started with it, with the animals. I've always been an animal lover. I've always loved science and biology. I still love science and biology. That brought me bring you up to at least 30 years ago when I met Andy Lee, and we co-authored a book called Chicken Tractor. We were up at Gardner Supply in Burlington, Vermont. I had a wonderful time there. And what we did is, he's very interested in soil fertility because he was a master market gardener. Literally, backyard market gardening was one of the books we co-authored. And Gardner Supply had a test garden. And what we did is we set up a little, it was by 2x4s. It was heavy, so heavy, it took 3 people or 4 people to move it. But we made it our first chicken tractor. Then we put chickens in there. We took the soil fertility first, and then we put chickens in, and we moved it one row down, a little chicken tractor lift down every 2 or 3 days. And then we tested the soil afterwards. We get to the end of the row, we'd break down this way. So we did that 2 or 3 times throughout the summer. And then when we tested the soil tilth had exploded. I mean, it was absolutely really beautiful and alive and everything. So we were so excited about that, including Gardner Supply people. And so we asked the University of Vermont to test our results. So they built a big hoop house and put a bunch of chickens in there, and they tested it on their campus. And they would move it periodically, and then they tested the soils before and afterwards. And guess what they found?
What?
The same thing. I mean, the soil fertility and tilth and earthworms have exploded. So now we've got something to not just grow gardens in, but to regenerate soils. Right. So then that went on, and Gardner Supply, now they have the whole Interville there, a huge area where they're doing farming and little gardens and everything. So that was my first introduction to really understanding that chickens were more valuable than just meat, and to really have hands on it. So,
well, for self-made preppers like me, that are just considering getting some for their family, why do you think they're such a good investment, especially in these times?
They're a good investment because they can do so many different jobs. We just talked about building soil and topsoil. We didn't talk about how they can consume garbage and turn it into topsoil. I mean, nothing that's compostable goes into my trash. It all I put it out there in a compost bin. I've got one that's just some pilots wired together. I mean, they can hop inside, and it just melts down. And same thing with the yard. Yeah, although there's my grass droppings on the grass, but so what it is start with just a few. And I suggest you just use the heritage breeds, because the commercial breeds, I think they've one, bred their common sense out, and two, the roosters are just really, really crazy. So one of the heritage breeds like Buff Orpingtons, Black Ostalorps, the American Livestock Conservancy has a beautiful reference for what breeds and where they're from. Some are bred for cold breeds, some are better for hot breeds, some are better for docile. Some are even better as therapy chickens, which we've used. And we can talk about that later if you want to. But it's amazing how a chicken can just calm an autistic kid down. Just not
Wow.
always, but often it's just a remarkable, even better than a dog or a cat type of thing. There are so many different breeds to choose from. I've got eight or nine different breeds in my flock right now. They're for bantams and just all different colors. I view them as pieces of art because they're so beautiful and they're all so different.
What about, I guess just a generic example, we'll say a family of four sitting on an acre of land. And I know you got zoning and you got different county regulations and things like that. And I guess you got to check all the laws and everything before you can get them. But what would you think for like a small backyard coop? I guess a lot of that will depend on climate and where you're located and care. And for somebody like me, because this is something I've been interested in a long time, what's the best starting point? I guess more or less for those not wanting to get involved too much with slaughtering and for meat at this point.
Well, you don't even need a half acre or an acre. I mean, I was did a book tour on the West Coast, Arizona, New Mexico, and so I saw a lot of different urban coops, and some of them were just built alongside the driveway,
right?
And they had just a little, I mean, and the chickens were viewed actually more as pets, of course, so they would. So it's not that you really need a lot of land, but what you do need is as a coop that's easy to clean, so you can collect the manure and hopefully use it and compost it. And it doesn't have to be movable, but it's nice if you want to put one on a raised bed and then you could lift it up and put it over on a different raised bed for a couple of weeks. And there are so many different coops designs, including from alternative materials that make it cheap. I've seen pallet made coops. In fact, I brought a book out. It has 48 building plans for housing your flock, and the title is simply Chicken Coops. And some of them are incredibly expensive. Some of them made literally from
right.
dropping. Yeah. And then there's another book called Reinventing the Chicken Coop, 14 original designs with step-by-step building instructions. It's by Kevin Mo Elroy and Matthew Wolpe. And the Chicken Coop book is by Judy Pangman. And my book, Chicken Tractor, well, actually, it's more City Chicks. I'm working on the second edition that should have been out 2 years ago, but it has a lot of different coop designs too that can give you. So the chickens don't care; they just want to be up safe from the ground at night, secured and without light, preferably, and then be out and be able to round around a little bit during the day. And that rounding around could just be a 4x8 little pen if you need to. So they're pretty versatile and pretty easy keepers.
So for anybody that's never done this before, do you go to Tractor Supply or go to your local co-op or somewhere and get some chicks, or do you start out with full-grown chickens? Like starting point from square one, from nothing. I guess you got to consider you need to have some kind of a light too in the coop, correct?
You don't necessarily have to have a light in the coop, no, because they're like I say, they're night blind. They know if they don't get in and up off the ground, they're dead. So they have a very strong instinct to do that. Well, there are also county fairs around. Often have the 4-H have their chicken projects. There are national chicken shows. There's one coming up in Ohio, and the big one is in November. It's in Ohio, yeah, and they'll have 12,000 birds of all breeds there. That is astonishing. Of course, they always have tailgate sales at all these fairs.
Right.
So that's easy. If you want to start with a baby chick, it's probably a little bit harder because you need to keep it warm. And I have nothing good to say about the heat lamps to put on animals because I think it's there all the time. The intensity of the light, I suspect, affects their vision. So there are these little hover heaters. I've got about 4 of them because we take them around to different schools or the library. We hatch out chickens every Easter at the library. And it just mimics a mama hen just hovering over the baby chick to keep them warm. So I would probably recommend just going with some young pullets, and meaning young chicks, and just, I would guess through 4-H or through your county extension, you could find someone that could then you wouldn't have to have a hover heater or the heat or whatever. They're ready to go on the
Right.
ground. It is, I have these hens that go broody, right? And so if I'm in the chicks in the Tractor Supply, and there's some little chicks there or something, and they're 250 or something a piece, I'll graft them onto the mother hen, and then she does all the works, including teaching them. There is an entire hen homeschool to raise baby chicks so they actually know to get up on the roost and know how to find food. I've started a book on that called The Way of the Hen, incubating eggs and raising chicks naturally. It's just, I haven't been quite as productive with these last 10 years or so as I usually am.
How many ideally do you think somebody, for the kind of scenario situation I'm talking about, how many chickens do you think someone should start with?
World War II gave a huge push to have chickens in the victory gardens, and they came out with all these different posters. And this is one, I'm just going to read it to you, but I'll show it to you in a minute. But Uncle Sam expects you to keep hens and raise chickens. Says 2 hens in the backyard for each person in the family will keep a family in fresh eggs. Even the smallest backyard has room for a flock large enough to supply a house with eggs. The cost of maintaining such a flock is small. Table and kitchen waste provide much of the feed for the hens, and they require little attention, only a few minutes a day. Here's the catch. Again, an interested child, if you can get them outside, old enough to take the responsibility, can care for a few hens as well as a grown person. So they're saying literally every backyard in the United States should contribute to its share bumper crop of poultry and eggs in 1918.
It's a shame we've gotten away from that, isn't it?
In time of peace, it's a profitable recreation. In time of war, it is a patriotic duty. There you go.
There you go.
Now,
shame we've gotten away from that.
What's coming back? It's been on there, but for your situation and others that are thinking about it, what kinds of hens? I generally suggest getting just the standard size hens, because you get standard size eggs. Then I have 5 bantams, so I get these little tiny eggs, but I just use 2 instead of 1. So, and I just adore them. They're pieces of art that are just so entertaining. And it's not that hard to do meat birds at all. In fact, you get a kill cone, which you can make. There's a bunch of information about just how to make a little kill cone. You put the bird in upside down, and then 1 or 2 swipes with a really sharp knife, and within less than 2 minutes, it's out. And then you scald it, take the feathers off, gut it out, and no neighbor would even know that you had done that, as long as it wasn't in the open, kind of thing. But so I've taught classes on that with Mother Earth News fairs. We did one in every fair, and Joel Salatin, but he does it commercially. So we also had some commercial version of them.
What kind of initial, for anyone looking to get into this, what kind of initial costs do you think with current inflation and how ridiculous prices are for everything? What's somebody looking at for a backyard coop to get it going? Just give me a guesstimate and a range here.
They've become so ridiculously expensive for so few hens. I mean, we're talking $400 in some of them, and maybe more.
Wow.
So what we did up at Earlham College is we took a stall and we made it absolutely predator proof, with wire on the ceiling and little blocks around the edge and over the windows, and then put up little pictures of chickens. I mean, the students all so it doesn't necessarily have to be a dedicated chicken coop. And I know you could take a portion of a garage, put it up a couple feet just off the ground, so you can get under there to clean up or whatever, and then use some hard wire. I just have nothing good to say about chicken wire, but just use hard wire. And you can do it as little as a 2 or 3 by 5 area, and then just have maybe cut a thing in the walls so they can get out or in or whatever, and have a people door. So it doesn't have to cost a lot, and there's a lot of different plans on there. And there's a whole book on using recycled materials to build a chicken coop. I've seen them made with the 50-gallon water barrels. So
I've seen a lot of different designs and different backyard coops that I've looked at. And yeah, it looks like you can do it pretty frugally if you know what you're doing from the start. So you kind of have.
If you have any carpentry skills, one of my coops is a shed. It's just a small shed that I got pretty cheaply. The chickens really don't care much, really, how beautiful it is. Again, they just want to be in after dark and up and secured. So a fox and raccoons they are strong and they're smart. don't underestimate a raccoon in picking a lock or doing some things that you, so.
Yeah, I've seen them things on my bird feeders, the way they've been able to literally pick my bird feeders up and take them off and carry them. It blows my mind. Their little hands are pretty incredible. The things
Yeah,
they
I
can do
love
with
them.
them.
I mean, I really like raccoons a lot. They can even be pets if you, some of them, not all of them, I think.
Right.
But I think when it comes to a coop, like my garage is big enough, I could just block off a wall, I just, again, the hard wire and 2x4s and wall it in and make a little coop for enough, enough birds for my needs.
Now let's talk about routine,
Mhm.
because it's a commitment. And having any kind of animal is a commitment. Once you've got your coop established, you've got a few chicks and you're getting going. I think this is the hard part for a lot of people. They rush into it and they don't think about the commitment, because I know me and my wife were talking about it before. We were talking about chickens, and it's like, well, we have to think about that before we go on a trip. We have to have somebody come and take care of them and all that sort of thing. But as far as like day-to-day maintenance, what do you need basically to do day-to-day in the normal routine to take care of them, to care for them properly?
Okay, that's not hard at all. And by the way, when you go on a trip now, there are chicken sitters that are
I've seen
coming.
that. Yeah.
There's-
Becoming a little business there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I've chicken sat for quite a few. It's no big deal, but the day-to-day routine, I automate mine as much as I can. So I have an automatic door opener and closer on my coop, so I can time it to open up at, say, when it starts to get light at 9 o'clock, and then close itself that night. So that takes a lot of worry off, especially when I'm traveling. As far as watering, let's see, I have a 5 gallon waterer. It's a little octagon shape, and I can fill that up with the hose, and that'll last for 4, 5, 6 days, and before I have to refill it with my garden hose because they're out in the back. So there are these bolted waterers. That I've got some water barrels from our local water company, 50-gallon drums. So I can attach that to a stock tank float and then have that in a little tank, and it can literally go on and refill itself for a long
For a
time.
while. Yeah.
For a long time. And in the new chapter in City Chicks book, it's sold out, but in the next edition of it, there are about 5 different kinds of waterers, trough waterers and waters like that you can use. So it doesn't have to be a daily thing. Now with food, they've got these feeders. I like the pig creep feeders. They're tall, they'll hold 3 or 4 pounds, but they're piglets. And so I don't have to feed them every day, but honest to God, every day I take out food scraps or leftovers from restaurants or whatever, and you should see them playing rugby with a French fry. I mean, they just go for it, a piece of bread. It turns into quite an entertaining thing.
Sanitation and keeping their coop clean too at some point, right? How often
Oh
do you have
yeah,
to
of
clean the
course.
coop?
Sanitation. I use the fine pine shavings. That it comes in different coarse and fine. I like the fine because it composts faster. So I just keep that in there. And with my flock, I'll put 3 or 4 beddings on there. Sometimes I'll scoop out where one chicken will stay every night, and so they get a little bit of a pile. So you can just take that, and then I just put it on the compost, and then I have topsoil. So, and if I want, while I'm composting it, when I turn it, then I'll throw some grains in there, some scratch grains, and they're all over, mixing it in and picking it out, and they're aerating it for me. So they're genuine workers in my garden. I wouldn't want to garden without them, to be honest.
Wow. That's something a lot of people don't think about. They just think about laying eggs, that sort of thing. So yeah, you don't think of them as being so multi-purpose.
They are definitely multi-purpose, and if you really get mad at them, you eat them.
There you go.
Chickens have been with humans as long as dogs and cats, over
Right.
3,000 years documented. I think Hannibal even crossed was it the Alps or whatever? He crossed with chickens. They traveled with chickens. And during the Civil War, Grant had a little hen had escaped from one of the food trains, and she had amazingly hid under his cot. I'm not making this up. He hid under his cot in the Union Army, and he saw her down there, and he called her Henny. He named her. And anyway, so she was his therapy bird for a while. I mean, I can imagine the horrors of that war and what must have gone on. And so she traveled with them, and the soldiers all got to know her and all this sort of stuff. So she was quite a character. But they had a new cook came into camp one day, and they were having a general's conference, and he saw her and made her for dinner. It was pretty bad, I guess.
That's horrible.
It was horrible. It was, yeah, poor, yeah, poor Grant. I mean, it was, anyway, so yeah, they do have multiple functions and
What you were just talking about kind of leads into another question I was going to ask you. I'm a big preparedness guy. I think about prepping and that sort of thing. So for people that have chickens, like a backyard coop, realistically, if there was some kind of SHTF scenario and somebody had to leave their house to go to their bug out location, could they realistically pack some of their chicks up and take them with them?
Oh,
I know there's different breeds that I've heard, like silkies are very, very docile, and you can just put them like in a little carrier basically and take them with you. And they're
the silkies, they're more like toys.
That's what I've heard. I've heard they're very, very docile, and that you can just kind of pick them up and take them with you like a pet, and just kind of take them from place to place. That's the kind of things I think a lot of people that consume my content and look at some of the things I talk about kind of think about. They use them as kind of a resource type thing. So that's kind of what I wanted to ask you about, as far as if something were to happen, what would you need to care for them, like as far as like a food supply for people, the kind of things you need to think about if you had to take them with you. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Well, I have quite a few different size pet carriers in shelves in my garage. And that's twofold. One, if the weather gets really cold, like 40 below in the wheelchair tractor, I'll bring the whole flock in. And so at least they're out of the wind for the night and they can keep each other warm. But if something happens where I have to really dash out, and this happened to a friend of mine in California because of the forest fire, their home was literally being engulfed, and they grabbed their chickens up and just put them in the back seat and hit the pedal to the metal and barely got out. I mean, it was just, I'm still amazed, but they did take their chickens with them, and the chickens in this whole flutter, they just settled down. It's like they almost went into a coma. Said, "Oh, not time to do whatever." And of course, they knew her too. But I have to go back and ask her if she actually put them in boxes or kennels or not. But it was a flash dash out of there,
right?
And pretty severe.
So it's definitely very possible and feasible for somebody to if they plan correctly, to just be able to grab them and go right to a different location.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I have one large size, which is more for, I mainly have medium size and then the smaller size kennels for when I travel or whatever, or take Oprah Winfrey to a show or something. So they travel great. I did a 3-week book tour in California, Arizona, and New Mexico with Oprah Winfrey.
That is the best chicken name ever. I
People
love it.
put us up. She was right there with me the whole time. She generally, I left the kennel in the car, but you didn't even know they're in the car. They just settle down. They're so quiet. I'm not sure every chicken's that, or if a rooster would be that way, but it's always been, most of them, they always travel really well.
Wow. What's some of the big mistakes you think people make when they get chickens, raising chickens, the people that have not been successful, that don't take care of them properly? What do you think some of the mistakes that they make?
Watching too much TV and YouTube and not getting out in the garden and working with their birds and have their birds work with you to do it. But it seems like we're getting, especially I fear for Gen Z, because everything is so inside and so telecommunication. And there was a book that just came out, we our book club read it. It's called The Anxious Generation. It's a New York Times bestseller. And it's how literally their brains are being rewired, how the great rewiring of childhood is causing an epidemic of mental illness. And I see that with the college students here at Earlham. It's really hard for them.
People that don't successfully care for them, that they kill them or whatever, they don't plan properly.
I think that the number one thing would be fresh water. And I have, with all our livestock that I've had over my lifetime, I have a motto that if I would not drink it, I don't expect that pig or cow or chicken to drink it.
Right.
And so I can't tell you how many times I've sort of looked down, turned around, walked away, and I go, or turn back and cleaned it a little more. So dirty water with people or animals, or that'll do you in probably faster than anything. And then the other thing is, of course, cleanliness is next to godliness. I mean, my coop has no flies and no manure smell, and that fine sawdust, it sort of wraps around the manure, so it dries out pretty fast. And then I compost it, so I don't have any sanitation problems at all with my little flock. So that would be my number one thing, is fresh water, and just tend to them every day. Just check and see how they are, and get your butt outside and, and play with your birds.
Right. Well, that's a great way to teach kids responsibility too. You've got some young
If you
children.
can get them outside.
Yeah.
I gave a talk on the Eastern Shore. Oh gosh, this was almost 12 years ago now. And we were at this boarding school, very elite boarding school. We were talking about chickens, and we had some chickens there. And we wanted them to take off their shoes and go barefoot. Just to the grass was beautiful grass. We were barefoot, and my God, they burst into tears. I mean, it was a traumatic effect. So, I mean, we were stunned. I was stunned. But so, okay, put your shoes back on, put your socks back. So, but the thing about that, these kids never get grounded.
Grounded has been shown to be great for the human body. Period.
It's absolutely necessary. We are electric beings.
Right.
I mean, our whole wire system is grounded. I sleep with a grounding pad on my mattress. So for this next generation, they're not even grounded because God forbid they go barefoot outside. I mean, even inside, maybe, I don't know. But so I really think, gosh, I don't know. I know.
Well, with all the rules, regulations, cities, the utilities, code, everything we've got these days, what are some of the things that people need to think about as far as planning a coop, getting a coop in your backyard or whatever? What are some of the, I guess, the legal aspects of some of the things you need to think about?
Okay, well, first thing you can just you go online to find the city code, and you can see what it is there. And then if you don't like it, you form a little group and you go protest it to your city officials. And we've done that so many times. There was a case it was Margie Stansel versus Bethesda, Maryland, of all places. so she wanted to prove that her chickens were pets. And I even took Oprah Winfrey in. She went through security. We were sitting there in the audience, and this chick, it was just great. And so she testified, and I testified that yes, chickens can be pets. They have personalities. They're very therapeutic in a lot of ways, and they give you eggs. I mean, dogs or cats don't give you eggs, but so anyway, she did win the suit, and she was able to keep her chickens. Now, what you need to do is check the laws, see if you can get with a chicken and garden club or join a club or start a club, even better.
Right.
There are things, they had it up in Michigan. They have flock blocks, where we'll have a whole block of people. The neighbors will take turns of caring for the chickens, and the kids will go down and take and the mayor of Madison was literally saying, it's brought people out of their houses. I mean, we're more of a community because of the chickens. We're out talking to each other, and all you have to do is, I mean, I can go anywhere and just sit down with a chicken, and I will have people around me talking about chickens and petting them. It's like a chicken magnet. It's crazy.
Chicken magnet.
I did that in San Diego, by the way. We went to a really upscale restaurant and sat outside. It was not too far from the beach. Everyone would walk by. Oh my God, isn't she beautiful? We had more fun with that. But anyway, so that's one thing. The second thing is get your coop in order so it's secure, like we talked about already. And the supplies don't have to be that much. I mean, probably for under $100, you can get a feeder or even make a feeder and have I like the pig feeders myself, the baby piglet feeders, and get your secure coop. And there are apartment chickens. I've seen where people have built literally a coop in their apartment. It's sort of like for a parrot or that type of thing. And there are chicken diapers too that you can put on them. So if you're worried about having them go, or if whenever I take a chicken out, I always put a towel down, but I haven't used the diapers yet. But I can see where they'd be pretty handy, because there's some nursing homes that have rolled out chickens as part of their entertainment program for the retired and the handicapped people, and they work. Yeah.
Wow. Well, Pat, talk a little bit about some of your work. You've written a ton of books on this subject. Talk about some of your books and where people can find you and your work.
I'm in an interesting phase of life right now. I'm sort of redefining myself, and it's like a Pilgrim's Progress. I've gone around the world and done all this and that, and I've come back to tend my own garden, and I'm enjoying that immensely. The books, the first one that came out was Chicken Tractor. It's in its third edition. I co-authored it with Andy Lee, and it's sold a lot. And the subtitle is The Permaculture Guide to Happy Hens and Healthy Soil. And we include the story I told you about Gardener's Supply and doing the test there, but it goes into a lot of other ecological things, including how to process a chicken, how to cut one up easily. I mean, I can do one in just from soaking probably take me at most 12 to 15 minutes to have it done. I mean, it's not that hard to do. And I don't enjoy doing it. I never will, and I don't eat much chicken, but all that is to say, it's not hard to do, and I've done it plenty of. And I think I'd rather teach people how to do it than have them just buy a store chicken,
Right.
because it's such a much healthier piece of nutrition than what's there. So Chicken Tractor, it's in its third edition. That was from permaculture. Both Andy and I were big permaculture fans. And then after that came Day Range Poultry, and that was about taking the Tractor Supply model that we did built the pen with, that moved it and turned it into a little cabin, basically a little shed on skids, because we had a farm that we were raising, hatching and raising turkeys and chickens. And so we could move it with the tractor to a new little pasture, and then they go and fertilize that pasture, and then move it to another, about a 1/4 acre pasture at a time, probably. So that's Day Range Poultry. And then City Chicks is out of print right now, but I'm working on the second edition. And the subtitle of that is Employing Local Chickens as Climate Change Activists. I told you about that, and I did a TEDx talk with Oprah Winfrey, the only TED chicken participant in the world. But that was done at Earlham College, and I've gotten quite a lot of feedback at that. So, and then Backyard Market Gardening is a great book. Andy Lee, he was a market gardener in Massachusetts, and it's the Entrepreneur's Guide to Selling What You Grow, and it's really, really good. And it's sold a lot of copies. It's still selling even after 20 years.
Pat, thank you so much.
Yeah,
I appreciate the
it's gone
time.
pretty fast. So thank you, Jeff. I think you're doing a really important thing, because I don't think people really understand what's happening in our world today.
No, they don't.
And how fast it's happening, and how contaminated our food supplies is,
You got that right.
and how sick our medical system is. So yeah, keep on. And
Thank you.
anything I can do to help you out, let me know. May the flock be with you.
Thank you for listening to the Politics, Prepping, and Paranormal podcast. Your source for real news and analysis on politics, prepping, paranormal, conspiracy theories, and the volatile state of the world we live in. Tune in next week and every week for a new episode, and stay safe, stay healthy, and stay vigilant.